AI startups are popping up everywhere, and they're doing well. But of course, they're blooming faster than the regulatory frameworks can keep up. So now that is the session that we will discuss. And we still have a few more moments before the session is ready. So what I would like to do is quickly with you, check in. Who is actually traveling from the outside? Can I have a quick show of hands? Who's not a Dubai resident? Who's traveling from the outside? Quick show of hands. Okay, so that's quite a few of you. Oh, 5, 6, bravo, also here. So fantastic. So especially for all of you coming back to our last session, make sure that you visit Dubai Chamber of Digital Economy, Digital Commerce, because they are really here to make your life easier. If anybody's looking for a golden visa, they make it as easy as possible, and therefore you need to make some time. Now, let's come to the topic of AI governance. We're really honored to have with us today the Under Secretary General Amandeep Singh Gill, the UN Special Envoy for Digital and Emerging Technologies. He's named by Time one of the 100 most influential leaders in AI in 2024. And he's going to be in conversation with Yasir Khan, Editor-in-Chief of the Thomson Reuters Foundation and the man behind context. Please welcome with me Yasir Khan and the Under Secretary General Amandeep Singh Gill. Welcome. Great to have you with us. Leave the stage to you.
Very well, thank you. How are you? I last saw you at Trust Conference.
Yes.
How have you been?
Not bad at all. Busy.
Good to see you again in warmer climate. Last time I saw
Pleasure to
you,
be here.
we were in London and it was cold.
Yes.
So I'm glad we're both dressed for the warmer weather.
My pleasure to be here. Good to see you, Yasir.
Welcome to Expand North Star. Since we've already been introduced, I thought I would jump in with our first question, if that's all right. I wanted to start off by talking to you about policy and governance. Today, policy and governance are, when it comes to artificial intelligence, are largely shaped by very few key players, right? And I wanted to ask you, how can countries, innovators and founders from different parts of the world, especially from the global south, how can they make sure that their voices and realities are part of this equation, are part of this evolving sort of global framework, not just as observers, but also as real contributors?
So that's been a big goal for us, to make the governance of artificial intelligence more inclusive. And we've succeeded, I would say, in taking the first steps to address this inclusion deficit. The global dialogue on AI governance that was launched last month in New York, it'll happen every year, and all 193 countries of the United Nations would have a seat at the table. But this dialogue would also be open to companies and the private sector in general. And we saw a foretaste of this. We had a foretaste at a launch event last month in New York, where companies, not only big tech, companies such as Microsoft, Anthropic, Meta, companies that are leading the charge, but we also had space for startups from Africa, from India, smaller companies to make their own case. So that space is getting more inclusive, and parallel to this dialogue, there would be a scientific panel of experts in AI from all parts of the world, 40 experts. The nomination process is open, so those who are really into AI science and AI technology in terms of a research orientation can be part of this global effort to bring evidence-based, science-based assessments of the technology, the opportunities, and of course the risks to the world.
Okay, well, anytime there's an emerging situation like this, you have that push and pull between trust and regulation, right? And many entrepreneurs in developing regions that fear that early regulation will only stifle innovation. How do we find the right balance between ensuring, responsible governance while still giving startups the freedom to experiment and take risks and innovate?
I think the first thing to keep in mind is that governance and regulation are not the same. Governance also includes promotion, more inclusive development of the technology, the right conditions in the marketplace in terms of competition policy, in terms of access to data sets, talent development. So governance is a broader concept, and that's been our focus. So policy and regulation is one thing, but then there is also the capacity, talent development, infrastructure, curation of diverse, high-quality data sets. So I would urge industry, startups in particular, to look at governance from that lens. And particularly at the UN, we are not into creating a top-down approach to regulatory issues. It's more of a facilitation, a horizontal facilitation of best lessons from around the world. And to my mind, that will help build interoperability so that a startup in Africa, a small AI company in India can have cross-border access to data for training, can find the scale that's needed in the digital economy. So I think this is a false dilemma between regulation, governance, because, we need the trust for rapid adoption.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. I mean, how does national sovereignty and the right of countries to own their own data, how does that affect, influence the balance of the broader vision of global digital cooperation? Because we still have either real or virtual borders.
Yes, indeed. So sovereignty is an important theme today. Everyone is worried about anything being weaponized, from trade to tech supply chains. So it's understandable. But I think sovereignty is expensive. Sovereignty requires discipline and a long-term commitment. And not everyone may have the stomach for sovereignty or the need for sovereignty. I think we have to understand sovereignty in a local context. In the Secretary General's report on capacity building on AI, for example, there is an emphasis on a minimum national capacity on AI. I think that for us is the bottom line. A small infrastructure to allow data sets to be curated, to be stored, a small pool of talent, particularly in urgent areas of investments like agriculture, health, education, and environment. And of course, a minimum base level of infrastructure in terms of compute, GPUs. All of Ethiopia, 100 million people, has 12 GPUs. That's not enough for the kind of challenges they face. So going up from that base level, I don't think that's a kind of a threatening kind of sovereignty. I would see this also as helpful in terms of absorption of AI developed elsewhere, whether it's open source or proprietary. So I think finding the right balance on sovereignty in this manner, in terms of maturity of different countries, but also horizontally, I think what we call digital cooperation is important so that we smooth the edges around sovereignty, that it doesn't turn into destructive competition or non-optimal choices.
We saw only recently in global geopolitics how effective the UN can be or might not be in enforcing frameworks or conversations and whatnot. I know you guys are building a framework and getting that conversation going. I know you had government meetings earlier today. How effective is this going to be, or what's stopping the big companies, the big tech companies from riding roughshod over all of these things that you and I are talking about over here? Because there's so much money to be made, and you and I are sitting on a stage in Dubai and just talking.
Indeed. I think my experience of the last 3 years working on AI issues, in particular the Global Digital Compact, is that the private sector, big or small, is interested in these global conversations. They all want a seat at the table. Right. So I'm not saying that they will abide by whatever is agreed all the time, but they're interested in the conversation. They want to be part of it. Even going forward, the science panel, the governance dialogue, the capacity building effort, we have that interest. I think the other issue is that, which gives me optimism, is that there is a change in narrative. So in response to last 3 years of discussions, the high-level advisory body on AI, the Global Digital Compact, now the AI governance mechanisms, I see the narrative shift. Often, in Roman times, there used to be these storytellers who went ahead of the soldiers and the policymakers. I think the shift in stories or the narrative tells you that real change can come. So we still have a lot of work ahead of us, but I'm optimistic. Particularly the science panel, I've heard the frontier labs tell me in meetings that they need a global floor on risk, which allows them to go ahead with their work. So yes, there is a huge gap in terms of the power of big tech companies, but I think we should not discount the power of democratic conversations, bottom-up pressure, peer pressure, and the weight of international law that's behind us in terms of the UN Charter, the International Human Rights Treaties, and other commitments.
What are the key decisions that are coming in the next 12 to 24 months that will determine whether emerging economies will benefit from AI or will get left behind?
I think a key conversation to be had is on the proposal for a global fund on AI of $3 billion that will allow urgent investments in that minimum national capacity I described earlier in about 90 to 100 countries that are getting left out of the AI opportunity. So base level of compute, data curation, talent development, some use cases. So that's something to hope for, wish for, work for. And I would say that the first dialogue on AI governance next year in July, and the first report of the science panel, we have to get that right as well. Because, people are often skeptical of big institutions today, of multilateral institutions in particular. So we have to continue with the streak of high quality, impactful work that really makes a difference when it comes to how you're landing AI in local context.
So we are in a venue where there are startups and emerging businesses, but also big companies and governments from around the world. At least half of them, if not 3/4 of them, have some flavor of AI to what they're pitching. What is, if there was one thing you would like them to walk away with from our conversation, or something that you would like to shout from the rooftops at these people, but also the people out there and out there, what would that be? What would you want the takeaway to be?
I would say solve hard problems. Don't go for the easy stuff. Don't go for the easy addictive stuff that we've seen during, the previous 2 generations of digital technologies. Go for harder challenges, societal challenges, improving productivity in agriculture, making agriculture and food systems more climate change resilient. Those kind of hard problems. Don't go for the low-hanging stuff.
What is the low-hanging stuff?
As I said, addictive stuff that
I had
kind of rides on like Web 2.1.0, Web 2.0, e-commerce,
so
or
we had
placing ads.
We had the UAE's Minister for Artificial Intelligence, Minister Omar Al-Olama, on this stage a couple of days ago, and he said that to him failure means that we'll be just stuck in the gimmickry, pet robot dogs and humanoid robots that are going to serve you your drinks. Is that what you mean?
Yes. I have always found it very easy to agree with my good friend Omar.
You are known as one of the big, more prominent minds on artificial intelligence in the world. You are leading sort of governance and policy conversations. But I wanted to ask you, when you come here next year or the year after, what is going to be different? What's the different conversation that you and I are going to be having here next year or in a couple of years?
Right. I love to see more startups solving those hard problems. It's already amazing the energy in the city, in this conference. Really impressive work that's going on. So just the share of harder problems being solved, it'd be great to see that next year.
Now, is there anything that I've forgotten to ask you that you would like to tell these people?
Yeah, I think another message maybe for the startups in the audience is the value of collaboration. So data, for example, it's a collaborative game. If we sit on our own data, try for exclusive deals, etc., yes, you can go some distance. But if we take more of a data commons approach, then the entire ecosystem benefits, and maybe access is faster and easier for everyone. So more of a collaborative approach. I see it in some geographies, but it'll be good to see it also across borders. A big focus of our work in Africa has been with DPIs, digital public infrastructures that are interoperable and that drive the intra-regional trade and build scale for African entrepreneurs when it comes to the digital economy. So I think we need those kind of collaborative spaces, collaborative mindsets.
You strike me as a very optimistic man. So far, every answer you've given me is optimism. What I wanted to ask you, what worries you? What keeps you up at night in terms of what we're talking about?
It's the concentration of AI power and how that could lead to immense concentration of wealth and opportunity in a few countries, in a few companies even. So I think that's what's most worrying. And so we have to, with optimism but with strategy, work hard to democratize the opportunity, make sure that AI works for all of humanity.
And when you talk to those people who are concentrating those, opportunities and power when it comes to AI, what do you say to them? Because you don't strike me as somebody who barges into a room and tells people to cut it out. How do you engage with those people who are, hoarding the power and the opportunity?
Right. I don't mince my words with them either. So I often say that 7 companies are not going to move the dial, and 10 companies on the SDGs. It's perhaps 7 million, 70 million. So I think we need to make big tech see that they cannot just, sit on top of an ecosystem if the ecosystem has no base. It has to be built on a base of hundreds of millions of companies, startups, entrepreneurs, and of course, there will be a natural evolution to the top for a few of them. But if there's nothing at the bottom, then they can't sit there in splendid isolation. So it's in their own interest that the talent is diverse, the data sets are diverse, the opportunities, the use cases are diverse. That can only come from a diverse private sector ecosystem.
Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for taking time out to have this conversation.
My pleasure, yeah.
And I'll see you
Thank you.
again in London.